Divine ones. What if I told you everything you've been struggling for is about to become heaven's responsibility? Have you ever felt like you were working so hard just to survive, and yet something deep in your soul whispered, you were never meant to struggle like this? There was a young woman named Zariah who grew up with nothing but a dream and a divine whisper in her spirit. Everyone around her told her she was too spiritual to succeed, too kind to get ahead, too different to be chosen. But something inside her wouldn't let her quit. She prayed, she fasted, she believed, even when the lights got cut off and the fridge was empty. Years went by and nothing seemed to change. Until one random Tuesday, she got a message from someone who had watched her speak online, someone powerful, someone wealthy. Within 24 hours, Zariah's life flipped. She went from living in her car to standing on global stages. Why? Because God said, now it is my duty to elevate my chosen one. That wasn't just luck, that was divine appointment. Divine ones, hear me clearly, the season of toil is over. From now on, it is God's duty to pour out the richness, to open the floodgates of favor, to transfer divine wealth, and to exalt you in the presence of those who once looked down on you. But why now? Why you? And what exactly does it mean when God takes over as your provider, promoter, and protector? As it says in Proverbs 10:22, the blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it. This video is not just inspiration, it's divine confirmation. If you've been seeing signs, if you've been dreaming strange dreams, if you've been feeling a shift, you need to watch this until the end. Because today, we're not just talking about wealth in your wallet, but richness in your purpose, abundance in your peace, and overflow in your divine destiny. The end of lack is not a maybe, it's a mandate. Let's break down the 7 spiritual reasons why from this moment on, it is God's duty to ensure you walk in richness forever. Point 1. You passed the test of obedience. You didn't fold when the pressure could have crushed you. When everything in your life screamed, give up, you stood firm. Not because you had it all figured out, but because your soul was anchored in something deeper, faith. That's no small feat. That's not weakness. That's power. And yes, God saw it all. Every silent tear you cried in the dark, every moment you resisted the urge to retaliate when betrayal tasted like blood in your mouth. When you gave your last dollar to someone else's need, even while your own bills screamed for attention, you weren't just being kind. You were demonstrating spiritual trust. That act of obedience, heaven recorded it. In spiritual laws, obedience is the currency before overflow. This isn't just poetic fluff, it's truth rooted in ancient scriptures and modern testimonies. Consider Abraham, who obeyed God's command to leave everything familiar without even knowing where he was going. That act didn't make sense logically, but it made perfect sense in the kingdom realm. Because in the kingdom, logic doesn't lead, faith does. And faith without obedience is just noise. But your obedience, it was thunder in the heavens. You forgave what others called unforgivable. That's not weakness, earth angel. That's divine alignment. When you said yes to your calling while broke, tired, and misunderstood, you weren't just agreeing to a spiritual job description. You were proving your loyalty to the one who called you. That kind of yes breaks chains in the spirit, and you didn't even know it. God was watching when nobody else was. Not just watching, but taking notes. Every time you humbled yourself, heaven tallied up a new level of authority over your life. You were being promoted in the spirit realm when it felt like you were being buried in the natural, but seeds have to go underground before they bloom. Now, you're qualified, not because you earned it by perfection, but because you endured with purity. The spiritual realm operates on obedience, trust, and timing. And you've passed the test in all 3. Don't be surprised when the divine riches begin to flow. Peace, favor, influence, provision. They're not rewards, they're the fruit of your faithfulness. You made heaven proud. The angels know your name. Keep going, you're just getting started. Point 2, you disconnected from the world's approval. You stopped trying to be liked, and that right there was your spiritual graduation. See, we're conditioned from a young age to conform, to fit neatly into systems that were never designed with our soul in mind. These systems, whether societal, cultural, or even religious, often reward the performance over the presence, the mask over the message, but you, chosen ones, began to sense the distortion. You felt that ache in your spirit every time you had to dim your light to make someone else comfortable, and finally you broke free. That detachment wasn't coldness, it was divine clarity. You realized that your anointing was never meant to be popular, it was meant to be powerful. There's something magnetic about authenticity. When you stopped chasing clout, those fleeting flashes of approval, and started seeking purpose, the heavens shifted. Seriously, there's a spiritual law at play here. When the soul returns to its original blueprint, the universe realigns. Angels take notice. And suddenly, what once felt like resistance becomes revelation. You begin to see that the stage you once tried so hard to get on was just a distraction. The real platform, it's your life, your growth, your testimony. Richness, true richness, isn't reserved for the loudest in the room or the ones with the most followers. It's inherited by the ones who stayed faithful to their calling when no one was clapping. Divine wealth, whether financial, emotional, or spiritual, flows to those who build legacies, not fan bases. It's those who prioritize truth over trend, character over clout, that are entrusted with heaven's abundance. Because God doesn't bless performances, He blesses purpose. This is deeper than being anti-mainstream. It's about being pro-soul. You were never meant to be just another echo in a noisy world. You are a voice, a vibration, a vessel. The moment you stopped trying to be liked, you started being remembered, not for how many people approved of you, but for how you made people feel seen, heard, and healed. Your detachment wasn't rejection, it was redirection. And now, as you stand rooted in your truth, know this: you didn't lose anything by walking away from the system. You gained everything by stepping into your sacred assignment. And that, beloved, is the kind of richness that can never be cancelled. Point 3. You carried burdens meant for generations. You didn't just survive for yourself. No, what you did was far more profound. You became the living embodiment of divine intervention in a bloodline that was gasping for breath. Your resilience didn't just protect your sanity. It shattered chains that had been binding your family for generations. The trauma you healed wasn't always yours. It echoed through your mother's silent suffering, through your father's haunting absence, and through a community that normalized emotional suppression. That pain, though silent, was loud in your soul. But instead of passing it on, you alchemized it. You chose to break, bleed, and rebuild, not just for you, but for every unborn child who now has a better chance at wholeness because you stood up. What you did is what epigenetics is only beginning to explain: how trauma can be stored in our DNA and passed down, and how healing can be just as genetic as hurt. Science calls it intergenerational trauma, but in the spiritual realm, we call it curse breaking. You didn't just pray, you cried with a heart so pure that even heaven had to pause. God watched you forgive people who never apologized. He saw you hold doors open for those who slammed them in your face. And when you could have turned bitter, you chose to turn holy. That's a power move no darkness can comprehend. Now here's the divine exchange. Every tear you shed, every night you cried yourself to sleep, every moment you felt invisible was never lost. It was recorded, deposited, multiplied. You have a divine trust fund, Earth Angel, one that grows not with dollars, but with destiny. The interest on your suffering is favor, peace, love, and joy that cannot be stolen. God is assigning angels to ensure you receive double for your trouble. Compensation won't just come in the form of blessings, it'll come in the form of alignment. Right people, right doors, right timing. You are not just a survivor, you're a restorer, a rebuilder, a generational architect. And as you rise, don't forget, you're the answered prayer of ancestors who couldn't imagine the strength you carry. So when you feel the wind shift and the miracles begin to flow, remember, it's not random, it's repayment. Divine justice, long overdue and finally arriving. Point 4. You stayed hidden until the appointed time. You were hidden on purpose, and not by mistake. While the world spun in the limelight, parading the loud and flashy, you remained cloaked in the quiet. While others went viral, chasing fleeting applause and temporary trends, you got divine. You were being refined in the sacred chambers of silence, in the secret place where God does His deepest work. It may have felt like you were being overlooked, like your gifts were unseen, your voice unheard, your potential untapped. But Earth Angel, the truth is, you weren't buried, you were planted. Nature itself teaches us this principle. A seed must first be hidden beneath the soil before it can rise. It must endure darkness, pressure, and time before it breaks through the surface into the light. The bamboo tree, for instance, doesn't break ground for up to 5 years. Yet during that time, it is growing a massive underground root system to support what will be a towering and unshakable height. That was you. While others were building platforms, God was building your foundation. He was strengthening your spirit, whispering identity into your soul, downloading purpose into your quiet places. This process is not punishment, it's preparation. You weren't denied, you were destined, and now in divine timing, what was hidden must be revealed. God is the author of seasons, and when it is time to unveil what he has refined, no force on earth can delay it. You won't need to knock on doors, beg for opportunities, or fight for recognition, because when God opens a door, no man can shut it. The energy around you will shift. Your presence will precede you. You'll walk into rooms and find that they were waiting for exactly what you carry. Your silence was not a void, it was a vessel being filled. You see, the spotlight without preparation can burn you, but the spotlight with God's preparation will bless you. And that's the season you're stepping into now, not because you finally earned it, but because you were made ready. Heaven is your PR, favor is your brand, and timing, divine timing, is your launch. So when the doors swing open, walk through them boldly, not as someone who was late to the party, but as someone who wasn't supposed to show up until now. Point 5, you prayed for wisdom, not just wealth. Most people, when faced with struggle or opportunity, reach out for money. They chase the paper, the coins, the fast cars, and designer labels, the things that dazzle the eyes but often leave the soul starving. But not you. You didn't ask for money just to flex on your neighbors or to silence your insecurities with a flashy lifestyle. You asked for meaning, purpose. You wanted to know why you were here, what your pain was teaching you, what your soul needed in order to grow. That right there is a holy difference. And that kind of heart posture doesn't go unnoticed in the realm of the divine. Heaven listens carefully to the language of the heart. And yours spoke wisdom. You asked to be a blessing, not just to receive one. That humility moved heaven in a way wealth alone never could. It echoes the ancient story of King Solomon, when given the chance to ask God for anything. Riches, power, long life. He asked instead for wisdom to lead his people well. And because his heart was in the right place, not only was he granted unparalleled wisdom, but God added wealth and honor as a bonus. Why? Because when you seek what truly matters, you're trusted with what others waste. When the motive is pure, abundance follows with peace instead of pressure. It's a spiritual principle that transcends time and religion. To those who can be trusted with little, more is given. Your soul cried out not for status, but for substance. You didn't want wealth to flaunt. It was to fund visions, feed the hungry, lift the broken, and heal your lineage. That kind of intention changes the trajectory of your life and everyone connected to you. And it's why divine favor starts showing up in subtle ways. Connections you didn't chase, doors you didn't knock on, peace you didn't earn, but somehow carry. God doesn't just reward hard work, he rewards heart work. And when he sees that your dreams are soaked in service, your prayers echo with purpose, and your wealth is meant to water the world, he multiplies it. Because in your hands, money doesn't become a god, it becomes a tool. And when heaven finds a vessel like that, it pours and pours until your cup overflows, not with stress, but with serenity. Point 6, you embraced the pain as preparation. You didn't run from the fire, you let it forge you. And that, earth angel, is the difference between those who merely survive and those who transform. Most people flinch at the heat of adversity, trying desperately to avoid the burn, but you walked into it with your eyes wide open, knowing that fire doesn't just destroy, it purifies. Like gold, refined at 1,948 degrees Fahrenheit, you allowed your soul to be tested, reshaped, and elevated. You understood a truth most people miss, that rejection isn't the end of the road, it's God's gentle nudge toward a better path, one lined with purpose instead of approval. See, the world applauds quick success, but it mocks sacred struggle. When you were breaking down, they whispered. Some even laughed. But they had no idea what was really happening behind the scenes. You weren't falling apart, you were shedding your skin. You were in the cocoon phase, hidden, silent, still, but never stagnant. What they saw as weakness was actually divine incubation. pain wasn't a punishment, it was prophecy being fulfilled in silence, because only those who are called are qualified to endure this kind of fire. And only those who survive it are trusted with the breakthrough on the other side. Now look at what's happening, those same people who doubted you. They're about to witness a transformation so radiant, so undeniable it will leave them speechless, not because you sought revenge or even validation, but because your glow is now too loud to be ignored. And God, He's not just returning what the enemy tried to steal, He's multiplying it. Joel 2:25 promises, I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten, but restoration is just the baseline. Because you endured, your harvest is going to overflow, too big for one field, too abundant for one table. This isn't just a comeback, it's a divine upgrade. Your trials didn't delay your destiny, they developed it. You're walking proof that fire doesn't always burn. It sometimes blesses. So stand tall, because the ashes you rose from are now the very soil your blessings will bloom in. This is your breakout season, and heaven has already stamped it with favor. Keep moving. The world hasn't seen anything yet. Point 7. You remained grateful when you had nothing. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it's a force, a spiritual technology. It's the unseen currency that unlocks doors no man can shut. When we say gratitude is the gate to glory, we're not just being poetic. We're describing a profound law of energetic alignment that governs the unseen world. Picture this. You stood in the middle of lack, maybe with nothing but lint in your pocket, and still whispered, thank you. That wasn't delusion, that was divinity. Because gratitude in the absence of physical evidence is a declaration of faith, and faith is the language of creation. When you praised with an empty bank account, you weren't pretending, you were preparing. You were setting a divine table in the wilderness, and heaven took note. Scientific studies in positive psychology have proven that gratitude rewires the brain. It increases dopamine and serotonin, the very chemicals responsible for happiness and motivation. But beyond neuroscience, gratitude activates something far more mysterious, resonance. You smiled while silently suffering, and that smile echoed into the frequency of abundance. It said, I trust the process. It said, I believe before I receive. And that frequency, it's magnetic. It pulls miracles into motion. Your invisible thank you notes became spiritual receipts for blessings yet to be delivered. Think about nature. It always responds to intention. Plants lean toward the light. Water takes the shape of its container. So when you created an atmosphere of abundance in the middle of drought, you were sending a signal to the universe. I'm ready. You tuned your soul to the station of overflow long before the broadcast hit your life. That's not just hope, that's strategy. That's spiritual wealth. And now heaven is obligated, not out of debt, but out of alignment. The divine cannot ignore resonance. Your praise didn't bounce off the ceiling, it built a ladder straight into glory. The richness that seemed slow, delayed, even denied, was simply aligning itself with the frequency you established. Your thankfulness was the blueprint, and now manifestation must follow. Your outer world is catching up to the wealth you've already built in your spirit. You didn't just attract abundance, you became it. And glory, it's not a destination anymore, it's your new address. Divine ones, richness is no longer a wish, it's your inheritance. It is now God's job to make sure you have everything you need to do everything He has called you to do. Stay faithful, stay aligned, and stay rich in spirit, because abundance is already chasing you down. Watch till the end, and awaken to your new divine reality, richness forever.